Hi, welcome to part two. So just give a light recap of part one. So basically, when Paul's writing his letter, he's writing in such a calculating way that it's addressed to the Jews, but it's some for the Gentiles, but it's in written form, so that way it gets preserved, which he knew it would. Then we can figure it out what actually happened, and the church today is still trying to figure it out. We do not have it figured out. So, and even I'm saying that because I don't have, I had the framework all placed out, the timeline framework, okay, that's correct, all right, but there might be some pieces that I'm missing, okay, so, I have no idea what they are yet, all right, so anyway, now that the laws were revealed, time to send a message to the stick of Joseph. All right, let's go over here. And you, son of man, take for yourself one stick and write on it for Judah and for the sons of Israel, his companions. Then take another stick and write on it for Joseph's stick of Ephraim and all the house of Israel, his companions. All right. So if we go back to the timeline, let's just go to part 3, and then I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go through a couple of hoops here. So we have here the stick of Joseph, and the stick of Judah, and one stick. So the stick of Joseph comprises of basically the scattered, the household of Israel that were scattered. All right, they're scattered from where? From Jerusalem and the temple. All right, they're not in the temple or Jerusalem. These are the ones that are scattered. All right, so Church of Asia or Church of Smyrna or Thessalonica or Philadelphia, okay, on it goes. And I'm sure there's more than that I've listened here. So these were the ones that arrived first. The stick of Judah was still at the temple at this point. They had not started the 1335-day prophecy yet. So during this time, John would have written his 3 epistles after he had already received a vision apocalypse, and he would have been putting it together really fast. That's why all 3 epistles, they're very short, and they're broken up into 3 instead of one long one, because he was in a rush to get it out. And so to prepare him for that 1335-day prophecy. All right. That's right. That's his timeline right here. All right. At the temple. All right. So anyway, all right, so continuing on. Oops, we already covered that. All right. So Mark 13:27, then he shall send his angels, messengers. So the word got out, laws were revealed. Eleazar, his dad had just died that day, and the same day he ordered no more sacrifices for any foreigners, which meant also for Caesar, which, according to Josephus, was the beginning of the war. It wasn't just that caused the war. There's some other things too. Like the Jews took over the Masada, and they were not paying their tribute or taxes, if you will. They would call them tributes back then. So the combination of 3 things would cause Nero to do what he did. So the responsibility fell on the Jewish people. So having said that, if you understand what I just said, that's going to really help you understand what Daniel 9:26, chapter 9, verse 26. I have a video on that. So, actually right here. Daniel 9:26 video. You click on that, I'll bring you right to it. So anyway, so the message goes out that the laws haven't been revealed. All right. So, let's see here. And shall gather together like from the 4 winds. So this here is Asia Minor. They refer to Asia back then. This here is Israel. And this here is Egypt. All right. And Memphis is basically the same spot as Babylon. All right. For Babylon, Egypt. So from the furthest church, it would have taken them about 14 and a half days by boat. All right. So basically, they would have followed it. They had to do it in 28 days based on the timeline. So August 14th when the message went out, on September 11th, based on the time times and half a time, we get to September 11th, 8066. They would have arrived in Petra. All right, but I do not believe they went straight to Petra. I believe they went to Babylon, Egypt. Why do I say that? 1 Peter 5:13, we get Babylon, and then we add Book of Revelation, where we get the second Exodus. If you click on this here, it'll bring you this video here, where this gentleman here will explain how the Book of Revelation would have been understood by the original audience whom it was actually written to. We are so disconnected from the author's intent, Book of Revelation, 2,000 years later, and he helps us correct that and try to understand it from their perspective, the people it's actually written to. So with this in mind, you'll understand how to get Egypt out of that and second Exodus. All right, so when you take 1 Peter, which equals Babylon, and Book of Revelation equals second Exodus, Egypt, you get Babylon, Egypt. That's where they had to go to meet Peter. That's where Peter was. Peter is only giving half the clue. He could not jeopardize the mission by giving out his full disclosed location. It was in writing. His son Mark would have been the one, the courier that would pass it around. If the Gentiles got a hold of that, it could have jeopardized their plans. All right? That's why you have one book, half information, another book, the other half information. You got the 7 churches in the Asia Minor, the 5 churches in Asia Minor. They would have compared notes, Babylon, Egypt. All right, that's how they would have known. So now I used a software called Orbis for this, figure out how long. And unfortunately, it gives you like key areas. So Memphis was able to work. All right, that's why I have here Memphis equals Babylon. So it took them less than 15 days to journey by boat. Okay, well within the 28 days. All right, so let's go to part 5. So they would have arrived in Petra, Babylon, Egypt. So again, let's just go back here again. So this area right here, that's green, that is this area right here, that's green. All right. So he has several boats that arrived these water channels and were funneled to one spot. You can just go on Google Earth and check it out for yourself. But there's several water channels and funneled to one spot. So in other words, the logistics is already taken care of by God based on the terrain. All right. So I believe this is around September 6th. They would have arrived around that time. Let's just go back here. Where is the verse? Let's zoom out here. Yeah. And gathered elect from the four winds. So they've been on boats with sails, and they would have floated across the waters all the way to Babylon, Egypt. All right. And from the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. So that the heaven aspect were the dead in Christ who had been rising all along. Okay, they were gone to heaven right away all along. Okay. Remember, Jesus said, "You will be with me in paradise." The thief on Jesus' left when he died on the cross. That tells us that on that very day, he overcame death that day, that very day after he died. All right. So from that point forward, the second death, pertinent to those who had experienced the first resurrection, had no restraint on them because Christ already overcame at that point. So they just go straight up to be with the Lord. All right. So this was going on during those 7 years from 8066 to 8073. All right. Before the last Yom Teruah. All right. All the dead in Christ had already risen before that last Yom Teruah. All right. And she shall send his angel with a great sound of a trumpet. Again, Yom Teruah. All right. So at this time, it was the one 8066. And they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Okay, same thing. Which brings us all the way to the last Yom Teruah, 8073. All right. So it's on the map or on timeline right here. All right, that's this green period right here. From the Yom Teruah right here, the Feast of Trumpets, to the Yom Teruah here, the very last one, last Feast of Trumpets. All right. So the dead in Christ were rising all throughout this period until right before the last Feast of Trumpets. There's no more dead in Christ to rise anymore. The last enemy destroyed was here about 5 months before the last Yom Teruah. So if there was an elect children of God that was redeemed, they had plenty of time, 5 months to do it. So there's no more left at that point within the house of Israel. Okay, again, this only applies to the house of Israel. All right. Yeah, and the Gentiles, yes. Those who are born again, yes, you go to heaven too. But that's not what's in view here. They're not part of Yom Teruah. All right, they're not part of fulfilling the law of Moses. All right. So anyway, yeah. So based on the calculation times, I already gave you that date. That's right here, September 11th, AD 66. Okay, and the timeline there. And if we go to Revelation 12, 13 to 17, let's see here. I need both screens to show up. Let's see here. All right. So basically what we have here, I can stretch this. So I'm going to try to show you how Petra fits, at least the prophecy, Revelation 12, 13, 17, is way better than Pella. Pella does not fit this at all. And again, I'm not saying that nobody fled to Pella, but that was not their gathering. That's my point. And when the dragon saw that he was drawn down to the earth, so he went into Nero, okay? He persecuted a woman who gave birth to a male child. So this was while they're on earth. So this was before they fled their gathering, all right? But the 2 wings of a great eagle were given to women. Okay, so now they got their sails, and the wind taking them, all right, to Babylon, Egypt, and then Petra, all right? So that she could fly in the wilderness to her place, which is where they eventually ended up, September 11, 1866, where she was nourished for a times and half a time. All right, and that's September 11th, 1866, from the presence of the serpent. And so now they escape from Nero, okay? Now the serpent, Nero dies, okay? Now the serpent takes on the same form as Book of Job, all right? And poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman, so that he might cause her to be swept away with the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened his mouth and drank up the river with the dragon poured out of his mouth. So that's right here. You can see that right here. All right, it opened up. So this is Petra, and it opened up. All right. So the dragon enrages the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her children. Now this was the stick of Judah. All right, they had not gone to Petra yet. They were still at the temple. So the serpent was going after him, but God gave him that time frame of 1335 days. If God told him 1336 days of Daniel 12:12, then the dragon would have hit them head on. But they left 24 hours earlier and they fled, so they were already gone. So when the serpent went after them, went into Titus, okay, and Titus, first day of the siege was the Feast of Unleavened Bread of AD 70, all right? It was that evening where the siege began. And the only ones that were struck were the Jews who denied Christ in the flesh, the Antichrist. The stick of Judah, who came to Christ, they were already gone at that point. Thanks be to God. He made those days short so that no flesh, so that the flesh would be saved, just like said in Matthew 24. Let those days shorten, no flesh would be saved. Who keep the commandments of God and hold the testimony of Jesus Christ. That's the stick of Judah. All right, so let's just go back here. So you had the flood right here, okay? And then the earth opened up and became enraged, and it went down to try to destroy. But they had already left on the 1335th day, 24 hours earlier. And so they ended up striking through Titus. the Jews united Christ in the flesh during the Feast of Unleavened Bread instead. All right. Thanks be to God. All right. So, let's see here. Oh, there we go. And that's it for part 2. All right. So if we go to Pella, you will see there's no evidence to support that passage. Just go here. And it's amazing how many scholars just don't think through this stuff. Just zooming on Pella. The logistics for Peter have been a nightmare. So you can see nothing had opened up. There's no evidence of whatsoever. Now their Galilee, which have been there all along, that hasn't changed. But Peter in John 21 to feed them. Remember, Jesus said 3 times, "Feed my sheep." So Peter would have been here, okay, and he'd been able to feed Israel, okay, and then once the stick of Joseph, the churches of Asia Minor and surrounding areas, once they came here, they would have had their own boats. They've been able to feed themselves. So that's why it wasn't long after that Peter would have died. In 2 Peter, he mentioned that he basically not going to live much longer. So it wasn't long after that he would have died. And the stick of Joseph would have been able to feed the stick of Judah until Titus did not allow anything to go in or out of Jerusalem, the temple. And then that's when they knew, okay, we're done. And then the flood occurred. Now they're both probably destroyed. No worries there. That's a whole nother theological discussion. And then during that time, half a time, they would have been preparing, based on John 14:2, fulfilled what Jesus said, "I will prepare a place for you." So the stick of Joseph, they would have been preparing a place for them. So when they fled, the stick of Judah fled, they had a place prepared for them. And then I believe at that point, that's when things became paradise, based on the book of Jonah, with the plant and Jonah. So I'll talk a little bit about that in part 3. So, all right, thank you very much, and I hope to see you in part 3.